Sure, yeah, happy to talk about it. Thanks for having us here at the summit. See, I think because I come from the e-commerce space, I think I'll probably speak a little bit to that aspect. And if you look at I'll give you a quick summary of where we stand, right? If you just look at the wave of digitization that the government organizations and machinery has gone through, I would like to say we probably completed two phases of digitization where a lot of the stuff that is needed to get to an export landscape, like the import exporter code, the AD code, etc., all processes have been digitized. Even the customs processes are in the process of getting digitized. When you send a shipment, what paperwork is needed, etc. Right? I think that the next sort of 12 months or so would focus on getting all of these systems integrated. So customs, RBI systems, foreign exchange reporting, and all of that stuff, right? That's where I think e-commerce exports is a slightly different place because the way the shipments work, especially for the MSMEs, right? You're sending smaller shipments first, the sale happens on Amazon.com or Amazon.co UK later, and so on. So one of the first things I would love to hear, and we hear rumblings already, that e-commerce should get almost like a special chapter, if you will, because the needs of the business are slightly different, right? So recognizing e-commerce exports as a different part of the business would be a great sort of boost, because then the whole government machinery will sort of start responding to the needs of e-commerce exports. I think the second and the third aspect that we would love to see is just understanding of tariffs and so on that even small businesses have to deal with, right? So the government's already signing up a whole bunch of FTAs. What would that mean, the rationalization of tariffs and so on? The third aspect is really just standardization and maybe simplification of some of the compliance bits, especially when it comes to the smaller players and the smaller exporters, right? Just to draw a small parallel, if you will, it may not exactly be the analogy, but when GST came on, a lot of people thought that the compliance needs would be very sort of imposing for smaller businesses, and then the government sort of created an infrastructure where the reporting is easier depending on the size of the business and so on. There is an opportunity to revisit how compliance can be a little bit simpler for smaller businesses, right, or micro MSMEs, and in what shape and form that can take. And lastly, I think this just awareness at the ground level, especially at Amazon, we are seeing, if you just look at our platform, we have exporters from over 200 cities in India. So how does this awareness of exports, especially e-commerce exports, can go to the grassroots? There is the export district as an export hub initiative that the government is running. So how can we drive sort of awareness and education in the ecosystem would also be good sort of way to influence the machinery as we build these policies. Yeah, see, I think just to give a brief history, right? We started the program in 2015. We only had about 100 sellers when we first started. Over the years, we've had over 1 lakh sellers now use the platform, right? So I think we felt like we've grown significantly. However, I feel like if you just look at the MSME space and if you look at the MSME in the ministry's own sort of goal setting, right? MSMEs account for about 48% or so of exports. That number is expected to grow to 60%. So I expect a huge run-up. I would love to see the number go from 3 to 10x from where we are over sort of a 5-year window, right? Yeah, see, I think the good thing when sellers or exporters get on a platform like Amazon is Amazon ships everywhere in the world, literally every country in the world, right? And so the systems are sort of designed so that all the duties and tariffs are planned into it. When it comes to certain industries, there are some natural, whether it is online or offline, is the same situation, right? When it comes to consumable products, let's say Ayurveda products, or we just had a blog entry on our website on a company called Better Alt. They essentially sell ashwagandha products on Amazon.com, right? Or Tulsi products on Amazon.com, or turmeric and that sort of stuff. So how does a bilateral agreement sort of facilitate the interest that customers have in these marketplaces and the sellers that we have? How can we sort of touch these at a specific category levels, whether it is, stuff that is uniquely coming out of India, like Ayurveda products, or stuff that India is really, really strong at, whether it's like toys, for example, right? Or things like tea and coffee and things like that. So those would be aspects that if the government can help facilitate bilaterally, I think it just helps reduce the barriers for the whole landscape. It is definitely ambitious, but I think it is achievable. And I think the reason I say that is if you just look at the trajectories that we have seen in other parts of the world, for example, right? Uh, if you just look at the way economies have grown, and if you look at even the 1 trillion target is set, if India becomes a 5 trillion economy and exports is 20%, which is not that far stretch, I think the 1 trillion number is achievable. We are probably in the early teens right now. If you just look at economies like China, they're already in the high teens, in the 20s. So I think the target is definitely a good rallying call. I think the machinery and the ecosystem will rally around it. We already are seeing, startups and technology providers like Amazon, logistics providers, policymakers, VC and private equity firms responding to this opportunity. So I think, I'm actually quite optimistic that we will be able to get to that number. See, I'm glad you asked the question. And I think one of the things is, if you had asked me maybe 3, 4, 5 years ago, right, I would have said our exporter base is a little more concentrated in the top states, if you will. Now what we are seeing is, like I mentioned, we have exporters in over 200 cities on the platform right now. And we are seeing seller base even from like Uttarakhand, right, or from Bihar and Jharkhand getting on the marketplace, right? So I think the states are picking up this challenge. You had Uttar Pradesh who has said we want to be a 1 trillion economy in our own right? So this whole sort of energy within the state ecosystem to become economies and export-led economies is helping. I think Amazon is also starting to sort of interact a lot more at the state level in terms of enabling specific parts of the sales strength, right? So for example, in Tamil Nadu, if textiles is an area, or in Gujarat, jewelry and textiles and other bits are important. I think that's where we are seeing sort of interaction with the state governments. We would love to actually get into the districts as an export hub in a more meaningful way, where the presence is at a district level, and therefore the energy sort of goes at the district level and not stay, just at the state or the state capital level.